Welcome back to Analysis. On Saturday, the government of Pakistan released its highest-ranking Afghan Taliban prisoner in an effort to jumpstart Afghanistan's struggling peace process. The Afghan government has long demanded that Pakistan free Mullah Baradar, the Taliban's former deputy leader, in the hope that he would play an important role in the peace process. Pakistan has released at least 33 Taliban prisoners over the last year, but there's been little progress towards a peace deal. Pakistan remains a key player in the Afghan peace talks because of the historical ties to the Taliban. But with mistrust between the two countries rising, what role can Pakistan play in facilitating peace talks in Afghanistan? In the studio with me, I have my three guests from the first part of the programme, and they're joined by Dr. Nurhak Nazimi, Director of the Afghanistan and Central Asian Association. Welcome back to the programme, and welcome to the programme, Doctor. Let me ask you first then, do you think that this prisoner release is important enough to affect the course of the peace talks?
I think, first of all, when we are talking about the Taliban, releasing the Taliban from prison, we need to go back to the 2001 Security Council resolution, United Nations Security Council resolution, when the member of state, the United Nations, agreed where NATO should go to Afghanistan and remove the Taliban from power, as they committed crimes against humanity, as they did genocide, and as they tortured millions of people in Afghanistan. And then when we are looking now, the situation is 180% has been changed. Now they are talking about peace negotiation. Now they are opening an office for the Taliban in Qatar, and now they are talking about releasing, as you just mentioned. You're right. You said that releasing Taliban from prisons in the past years, we saw that there's no any progress for the peace settlement in Afghanistan. We see the extremist activities of the Taliban increased in 2013. We saw how number of the innocent people has been killed by the suicide committed by the Taliban, and we see every day what is doing by the Taliban in Afghanistan, and also people, innocent people, become victim of this terrorist activities in Pakistan as well.
Mm. Taha, I mean, it's a fair point to say that the West went to war because of the Taliban, but the war failed, and that's, I mean, one reason why the Taliban.
Well, I don't think the West went to war for Taliban. They went to war after their own monster, what they had created there. Taliban were just forced into this whole war. Taliban were a kind of political kind of setup there. What the Western government should have done, they should have built their capacity to govern the Afghanistan in a proper fashion, which was acceptable for everybody, all the stakeholders. Nonetheless, the Western world failed in doing that. Having what Dr. Noor is saying, I think what we see today is definitely worse than what it was before. Taliban are seen now more powerful what they were before. They were in government obviously before, but now they are on the fringes. But they seem to be dictating the authorities what to do and what not to do. That point is true. But at the same time, what we saw here in the United Kingdom, when we saw a dialogue with the Irish Republican Army, IRA, that helped us to succeed, that helped us to bring peace on the table. When we used forces against IRA, we didn't get nowhere. So that was a complete kind of failure. So the complete success is still not there. Nonetheless, we are 85% there as far as the peace is concerned. People can go to their schools, people can go to their academic institutions, people can have their normal day-to-day life, which wasn't available before in Northern Ireland. So I am fully supportive of dialogue, no matter who. I think the other parties, they should really revisit the animosity against Taliban. They are one of the very fundamental and important factor a reality on the ground. We must negotiate with them, we must have a dialogue with them, but we must not condone any terrorist activity what they commit.
Do you think that's the right approach? I mean, and do you think that it was the Western occupation that rebuilt the strength of the Taliban in some ways?
Partially, I agree with Mr. Toha. If you see the cause of militancy in these areas, it's the basic thing which the people say over there, that we are fighting against the Western forces. After the withdrawal of Western forces from Afghanistan in 2014, I think there will be more space for Taliban or ordinary people to come into the government and participate in the rebuilding process of Afghanistan. If you see, Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and Hamid Karzai met with each other. It was the first time that Karzai showed confidence in Pakistan Prime Minister. So it's a good start. They have to start it, but I think this matter will take time. This is the first step to release Mullah brother, and Pakistan army, who have suffered huge losses, around thousands of Pakistani army personnel have been killed. If you see, Afghan people have been murdered, they have been killed in suicide attacks. Thousands of Pakistanis suffered on this side. So ultimately, both sides have to come. They have to sit on the table and negotiate without any preconditions. And the ultimate aim will be the stability of Afghanistan, stability of Pakistan, and the betterment of ordinary people on both sides.
Okay. Let's try and bring Yunus Samad back into the discussion. Can you hear me? Hello, Yunus. I just wanted to ask you what you think the chances of this prisoner release actually having an effect on the process might be, on the peace process. Hello?
Well, I mean, I suppose it makes some kind of impact. It's seen as a goodwill gesture. The problem is that Mullah Badr has been out in prison for the last 3 years, so there is a question mark, how much influence does he have in the Taliban now? The Taliban also made a number of other demands, which were that they have at least, I think, 5 prisoners who are in Guantanamo, they want released. So I think the thing is that while these gestures are seen in a positive light, I think the problem is that, you know, there are a number of actors, and each actor has slightly different agendas. And so Karzai has his own agenda, and he has his own difficulties. The Americans have an agenda, and they have a number of problems within that agenda, and so do the Pakistanis. And I think the thing is that it's the gaps between the different groups. Taliban is actually trying to exploit them to a degree. I mean, the problem for Karzai is that basically, you know, this is a Northern Alliance government, and they don't want what you call the Taliban to become a government in waiting. What they want to do is to absorb it, but they don't want it to have so much Pakhtun influence in the government that it changes its nature, and that the Northern Alliance influence is radically reduced. So there is one set of things. The Americans, they just want to get out now. They had enough. They want to get out, and they will talk to anybody who will give them a face-saving withdrawal. And so, you know, Karzai feels vulnerable to that the Americans can suddenly start to what you call moving away. And at the same time, you know, the Americans, you know, also feel that Pakistan has a role to play. But Pakistan, you know, while it has some influence, and Pakistan has a certain interest, what it doesn't want is to see Indian influence increase in the area. It wants to see Pakhtun influence increase. But then within Pakistan, there are different groups who have what you call different positions. The army has its view, and the political elite has view. So what I'm trying to suggest is actually the situation is not very, very clear cut. It's actually a little bit complex. And from the Taliban point of view, well, I think, well, if the Americans are withdrawing, what is there to really negotiate about? Let them go. We'll see what's left over. And so I think the thing is that, you know, while there is some interest, the question, I don't know whether we are at that stage where we will see really serious negotiation.
Okay.
because people are feeling each other out.
I mean, Dr. Nazimi, I mean, the real lesson of all this is never trust the imperialists, isn't it? I mean, you know, over a decade later, tens of thousands more deaths, and the people that they said they were, I take Tah's point, they may not actually have been aiming to do this, but what they said they were aiming to do, they've done exactly the reverse of.
But we have to consider the NATO involvement in Afghanistan in different contexts. One is about security, and one is about some kind of reconstruction. When people from here go to Afghanistan, I don't think that people will feel the same as they felt 12 years ago in Afghanistan. 12 years ago, Afghanistan was a safe place for terrorist activities. Afghanistan was a country which hosted bin Laden and its terrorist groups in Afghanistan. Now, when you are going to Afghanistan, at least there are some kind of employment opportunities, some kind of educational opportunities available, and some kind of reconstruction has been done. But in terms of, I agree with you. I just want to go back again that I would like to ask my friends from Pakistan, would you negotiate with someone who kill innocent people, or you want to put it in prison and bring him to justice? For example, Karzai, for the past 12 years, he called Taliban as a brother. I don't think that any Pakistan administration will accept any terrorist in his countries as a brother. But in contrast, when we see in Afghanistan, it's a different situation, which is very painful for the ordinary people. And for the past 12 years, we haven't seen, for example, any action from the Afghan government to bring Taliban, instead of releasing them, instead of punishing them, they are releasing from prison. The question was about the NATO involvement in Afghanistan. But again, when we see Russian invasion, when we compare the Russian invasion and NATO invasion, there are some differences. For example, during the Soviet, we clearly saw that this was unilateral action by the Soviet at that time, where when the Americans went to Afghanistan, they secured Security Council resolution. In fact, that the Taliban have no excuse to fight against NATO, because the NATO went to Afghanistan by the Security Council resolution in 2001.
Do you think it would have been a better course at that time, when the Taliban government offered to the Americans that they would give up Osama bin Laden rather than be attacked? Do you think it would have been a better course if they'd taken that
Yes,
option?
it was a better option, but as Mr. Toha said, that the aim to invade Afghanistan was not the Osama bin Laden. There was some hidden agendas over there. My friend from Afghanistan, he's contradicting his own points. At one hand, he's saying Afghanistan is a safe place, and on the other side, he's saying daily suicide bombers have been hit over there, and infrastructure have been built over there. I think I have many friends from Afghanistan over here in London. What they tell us, what international reports tell us, that even the NATO forces are, and the Afghan government is just in the Kabul, in 4-mile radius, and after this area, there is a lawlessness of Taliban operating there freely. So what he put a question on us, that would we like to negotiate with a killer? What at the end, what happened when there is a conflict? You have to talk on the table. Who started the negotiation? It's the UN forces. America started this process. They came up on the table with the Taliban in Doha. They started their offices. They are giving them money. They are trying to bring them close. If they can negotiate with them, then why Pakistan can't negotiate with them? because thousands of people have been murdered in Pakistan, martyred in Pakistan. Pakistan economy paralyzed because of this conflict on the border region. Pakistan army have suffered thousands of casualties. Pakistan economy almost collapsed due to this war. So it will be a process to start negotiate with the Taliban so that they can come up on the table. We are not saying, we are not supporting any criminal. If there are criminals, they must be held accountable. But can we afford to lose more lives? Can we, after 5 years, we will sit again and we say that in the last 5 years, 20,000 people have been killed. We have to save these 20,000 people. The NATO forces, they have also been to be saved. There are hundreds of American soldiers, hundreds of British soldiers have been killed over there. We have to save their lives as well. This is what you say, this is a war which is not going anywhere. It's going toward destruction. We have to save the ordinary life, whether it's American soldier, British soldier, a Pakistani or Afghanistan. So this is the simple question.
I mean, it was said that the Irish peace process came about because the security services in this country and the British Army said, look, we can't militarily defeat the IRA. They can't defeat us, but we can't defeat them. And that's where we are, isn't it, in Afghanistan?
Of course, I mean, when you are at war, then there is no terrorists. They consider themselves as freedom fighters. What they are saying is they are freeing their own country from the foreign forces. This is what their claim is. We are not sitting here, Pakistanis or Afghans, or we are brothers. Afghanistan is our brother country. We are supporting Afghanistan. That war, actually, we have brought in our own country by supporting Afghanistan, as a matter of fact. What the fruit, little bit, what they see, is due to the Pakistan's effective support to develop Pakistan into the right direction. Now, it is, as a matter of fact, in America's interest to have this dialogue. Like Azhar Javed rightly said, that Americans, they started this dialogue. Pakistan has always been very supportive of all the communications between Taliban or any other stakeholder. They have been negotiating with the Taliban, Americans, British, as well as the Afghan government. But we never got anywhere. Now I think is the time where I would ask my brother to support dialogue. They might be criminals, but in whose eyes? They might be criminal in your eye, but they might not be criminal in their people's eye. So I would say Afghanistan should be governed by Afghan people, not by the foreigners. That's one. Second thing, I suggested nearly 2 years ago to United States and NATO's commander that why not American forces they pull out or NATO forces pull out and leave that space for United Nations for at least 4 years. And the work what we are talking about, having dialogue with Taliban, having fair election, and handing over the government to the right people who win the election. And every 2 years we have the election, and we will see there will be a bit of cleanup. That's one part. And the second part, what our brother said, the rebuilding of Afghanistan, as well as the borders of Pakistan, where there's a huge conflict, and Pakistani military forces they have lost hundreds of lives there, and ordinary civilians, thousands of them. The rebuilding work should be carried out, I think, OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. I think it is about time now they stand up and they tell United Nations that this is in our country's problem. Let us just sort this mess out among ourselves. I think that's the point now.
I mean, Dr. Nazimi, you said, you know, that terrorist groups were operating in Afghanistan at the time of the NATO invasion. But since then, they're operating in a whole load of places where they weren't operating before. There is Al-Qaeda in Pakistan, there wasn't before. There is Al-Qaeda in Iraq, there wasn't before. There is Al-Qaeda in Somalia.
In Syria now.
And
In Kenya, the recent attack
thanks for the help. But the point stands, the list is long.
Yeah.
And that is a direct product of the war on terror. So whatever it's done to Afghanistan, it hasn't worked on an international scale.
It affected our security
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
let me just-
But I disagree with you, because if you remember, it was the support of Al-Qaeda and terrorist groups around the world where the Taliban got the confidence to control Afghanistan over 90% of the countries before 2001. This means that we had Al-Qaeda in Pakistan before 2001. You had the terrorist groups in Pakistan before 2001. Even one of the other issues that the Taliban is getting confidence because of the Uzbekistan and Chechen terrorist group, that they are also joining them. Again, where is the safe place for Chechens and Uzbekistan groups to join the Taliban? Again, it's the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Durand line. Until we don't sort it out, the Durand line, we will never have any peace and security and stability in Afghanistan. This is a very, very important
So
matter.
do you think that NATO should just fight on in Afghanistan?
No. I think the NATO, they have legitimacy to stay even after 2014, because when we see that when I just mentioned about Uzbekistan, Chechens, and some other terrorist groups from other countries in the world coming to Afghanistan and Pakistan for fighting, then we can see that no, if we say to NATO that leave Afghanistan, then there will be bloody conflict in Afghanistan, and then the situation will be the same like we had before 2001. As I said, Durand line should be sorted out, and then the other things, 80% of the population is against the Taliban. I don't think that there is any legitimacy to talk with the Taliban where everyone is against them. You have maybe only tribal people in the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan who support the Taliban idea.
Well, I have to tell you that there is a party in government in this country with considerably less than 20% of the support of the population, and that's the Liberal Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean,
and then also, just let me
Hang on,
finish.
let me bring in a Skype guest. Come here. Eunice, so do you think that the net effect of this, which seems to be in some ways what people are saying, has been to reduce Afghanistan to a state of ungovernability?
Well, I mean, look, the one reason why the Americans are talking about negotiation is because they have failed to defeat the Taliban on the battlefield. It is simple. They introduced a surge. They thought with the surge that they could actually neutralize the Taliban, bludgeon them so much that they would come to the negotiating table and then dictate terms. That has completely failed. And I think the Americans realize that, and that's why they are actually so keen on getting Pakistan, in trying to persuade the Taliban so that they can get an exit out of things. This raises a simple question. If you want peace, you're going to have to talk to your enemy. There's no point talking to your friends.
Okay, well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop you there because that's all we've got time for. So my thanks to Professor Eunice Samand, who was our guest on Skype, and to my guests here in the studio. I'm sure that we'll be revisiting this issue in future editions of Analysis.